Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Southern Planning Committee. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if you hear the fire alarm, it is probably real or potentially real. So please make your way to the front of the building and group there. The meeting is now being live streamed and recorded, so you can watch your brilliant performances later on, instead of watching TV when you get home. And I request that all mobile phones are on silent or switched off, so we're not interrupted throughout the meeting. When members and officers speak, could you introduce yourselves so that I remember who you are? Also that they're brought to the point that members of the public watching on live stream will know who's actually speaking. Okay. I'll ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves, beginning on my right.
Tim Brown, solicitor.
Tim Ward, committee officer.
Joanne Thomas, solicitor.
Councillor George Holyhead, Brownlee.
Councillor Elizabeth Barker, Sheffield Rural.
Councillor Caroline Bagnall, Broseley.
Councillor Beverly Waite, Ludlow East.
Nigel Lumby, councillor for All Brighton.
Councillor Colin Taylor for Bridge North South and Alverley.
Councillor, Rachel Connolly, Bridge North West and Tassley.
Sam Wormsley, councillor for Clun Division.
Nick Ignat, councillor for Ray Valley.
Lynn Parker, principal planning officer.
Tabitha Lith, planning and development services manager.
Emma Green, area planning manager.
And Andy Boddington, councillor for Ludlow North. Right, thank you for that. Apologies for absence.
We've had apologies from Councillor Josh Dickin.
Thank you. So, can we confirm the minutes of the last meeting? Would somebody like to propose that? Councillor Hignett. Seconded. Councillor Holyhead. Thank you. Any disclosable pecuniary or other interests? Beginning with Councillor Hignett.
Thank you, Chair. Item 5 on the agenda. I'm a paid up member of the National Trust. I don't believe that this application directly relates to the financial interest or well-being of that body, and therefore I'm happy to take part in the debate and voting based on the material planning evidence before me today.
Councillor Taylor.
Ditto, Chairman. Exactly the same.
Councillor Waite.
Ditto, Chairman.
Nobody else a member of the National Trust? Councillor Wormsley.
Yes, also a member of the National Trust.
Yeah. And we have an application in your division.
Yes, the application for the house in Brampton Bryan is my division, so I'll be speaking on that one and not voting.
Thank you. No public questions. Good. So the first item on the agenda is Attingham Park, and it'll be Lynn who is introducing it.
Good afternoon. Before we start, I'd just like to clarify the parish council areas. At the top of my committee report, you will see that I have put in Atcham as the parish council, and that's incorrect. It's Wroxeter and Uppington Parish Council that cover the site, the area that the proposed development is. It's a little bit confusing because Atcham Parish Council cover the area where Attingham Park is sited. So there's a split down the middle of the National Trust land. On one side you've got Atcham, the other side you've got Wroxeter and Uppington Parish Council. So it's my mistake at the top of the committee report there. It should say Wroxeter and Uppington. Secondly, we have just received a late representation from Telford and Wrekin Highways, who wish to reiterate the comments that they have submitted and which are reported in the committee report anyway. Thank you. This is a full planning application on behalf of the National Trust for an outdoor hub development at the Attingham Park Estate, Atcham, proposing multiple attractions as summarised on the screen. The intention for the proposed development is to create a new visitor experience which differs from the existing offer at Attingham Park, to provide a base from which visitors can explore natural landscapes safely, and to create a gateway to the countryside through outdoor activity. The facility would centre around a core area containing a new outdoor hub building with associated parking. The 27.5 hectare site is on the northeastern side of the Atcham Business Park and to the east of the existing Attingham Park attraction. The red hatched area in the centre shows the proposed site with the red lines extending from it, denoting improved pathways. The inset in the top right corner shows the proposed site's location as it sits within the northern section of the National Trust land, which is hatched in blue. This slide better shows the position of the proposed site in relation to Attingham Park, which is labelled green on the left side of the screen. The insets show the proposed site overlaid in red in the top right, and an enlarged view of the site in the bottom left, where you can see the markings of the former World War II runways still visible. Atcham Business Park is clear in all three images as the semicircular grey shape. The surrounding historic environment. In this slide, X marks the proposed site, with the darker hatched red area denoting the extent of Attingham Park Historic Park and Garden, and the bright red hatching showing the relative position of Wroxeter Roman Town Scheduled Monument to the south of the site. The red houses relate to listed buildings. You can see that the proposed site is located where it would not be adjacent to these heritage assets. The second image is a detail of the former World War II layout, showing the runways in yellow, the position of the control tower as a white circle, technical and storage buildings as grey rectangles, some of which are both in the business park and in the adjacent woodland, and the dotted black line is the alignment of the former Roman road. Here is the site master plan, and as the identification numbers are a little small, I'll point out the main features. So the main hub buildings are here in the centre of the former runway. The service yard is to the south of that. The associated car park is this area here, with access proposed from the Atcham Business Park access. This is the former runway, as I've already said. This is the Post Village Green. Overflow parking here. Event overflow parking here. You can see that there would be the proposed cycle tracks and trails within the two areas here and here. Hopefully this key spaces illustration will further inform you of the proposed layout as it simplifies the development into main zones. Site access. The principal vehicular access point is proposed off the B4394 via the Atcham Business Park Road to the southeast side of the site. The giveway priority junction with the B4394 would be retained. A junction bell mouth will be created for the site off the Business Park access road, approximately 90 metres from the junction, where a two-way road would take visitors into the outdoor hub car park. An existing speed hump on the Business Park access road is proposed to be relocated to the south. The photograph at the bottom of the slide shows the existing speed hump and the point of the proposed access behind it. The pedestrian crossing is shown to the northeast of the Business Park access, with dropped curbs and tactile paving being proposed to support it. That's here. These photographs show the Atcham Business Park access road junction with the B4394. From the southwest at the top and from the northeast below. Here are the floor plans showing the group of hub buildings arranged around a central courtyard. The proposed viewing tower is located in the top right corner with a welcome space at ground floor level. There would be two upper levels above with a viewing deck on the second floor. This is the east side of the building. So this is equivalent to that side of the layout. I'm thinking of the next slide, apologise. The cafe is located on the west side and the showers, WCs, changing rooms, etc. on the south side. The bike hire and workshop building in green is positioned on the northwest corner. This image shows the primary east-facing elevation in the middle of the screen, with the west-facing elevation below, also a block plan for reference and an indication of the main materials palette of specialist render, a concrete plinth, and timber and bronze cladding. The windows, doors and louvres would be aluminium. This is the slide where I was. So this elevation is this elevation. This elevation is the eastern elevation over the other side. Here are the north and south elevations. The north elevation across the centre of the slide would face out towards the village green. I've included a visual of that elevation together with a photograph of the original RAF Atcham control tower for design reference. The south elevation facing towards Atcham Business Park is at the bottom of the slide. To finish off, I have two slides of images to give a feel for the intended site experience. This slide shows the different types of play and activity proposed, including zip wire and barefoot experiences, agricultural play, naturalistic cycle tracks, boardwalk through woodland, formal pathways, and indicative signage. This final slide contains a visual of the proposed primary elevation as approached from the car park. With clockwise from the top left, images of formal cycle parking, indicative external and internal appearances, hub building, village green, woodland benching, wetland viewing decking, pathways through planting, the view towards the Wrekin from the runway, and parking integrated with planting. As set out in the committee report, The compliance of the proposed development with planning policy is weighed significantly in favour of supporting the application. The proposed outdoor hub would fulfil the three overarching interdependent objectives for achieving sustainable development. In short, that it would help to build a strong, responsive and competitive economy. It would result in a well-designed and safe place that would support social and cultural well-being. And it would make effective use of land to protect and enhance the natural, built and historic environment. Members are requested to support officers' recommendation for approval of the application, with delegated powers to refine and set the text for the conditions set out in Appendix 2 of the committee report, and subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the provision of a habitat managing and monitoring plan and BNG monitoring contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Are there any questions for Lynn from the committee? Yes, Councillor Barker.
Is there any alternative access points, or is it just off the business park? Right, and am I right in assuming that's if the business park allow it?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Right, we'll go to speakers. Now, we have a number of speakers on this one. Beginning on my list, it says David Adams and Duncan McCallum. Welcome, gentlemen. You have 3 minutes for your double answer.
Hi, so I'm David Adams from Entran Highways Consultant on behalf of Hereford Storage. So the proposals seek to increase traffic through an existing access, which would be a simple priority junction, by some 1,900 two-way vehicles daily. That's an increase of approximately 240% over what is existing for the business park. The extant highway arrangements for a simple priority junction will not provide for a safe and suitable means of access with the future development in operation with this level of increase of traffic, especially where speeds are high, road geometry is straight along the B4394, and HGV use is significant currently through the access. Therefore, and as we've concluded previously in our documentation before and responses, it's our professional opinion that a ghost right turn lane should be delivered as part of this proposal, in the interest of both vehicle movements associated with the business park access to and from the B4394, and on the basis of road safety, and that is in line with national design guidance of design manual for road and bridges, which is applicable for a road of this type.
Okay. Hereford Storage has four main concerns: road safety, you've just heard about, congestion interruption from the free flow of business park traffic, particularly major events. There's a very large number of car parking spaces, probably at least 750. It doesn't take much to know about, or imagine them trying to leave or even arrive at much the same time. There's no plans for car parking at the moment, and it's likely to lead to unauthorised and inconvenient car parking on the estate and increased security. The concerns were raised at the early stage of the application, but the trust hasn't responded. The events management plan that has been submitted does not address the issues relating to planning, the nature, frequency and timing of these events, and so you have no information on what the impact is likely to be. We consider that there are perfectly adequate grounds for refusal of this application, but we would urge you to defer the application at this stage so that these defects in the information that you have before you, particularly on major events, can be addressed properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you for that. I can certainly understand why, from your perspective, this is a concern. Can I just check my understanding? So this is a private road into the business park, and does that mean that you effectively have control over development that happens onto it? And you could, if we passed the application today, would then be in a position to negotiate with the National Trust until they had put forward a proposal that met your needs as a business and for the users of your business park?
Yes, I mean, that is, and I think we believe that every storage have absolute rights over it, so there is no, it's not quite accurate. What I think concerns Hereford Storage is that they wouldn't want to be put in the position of saying no to a desirable development, but also that sitting on the books with this access, so to speak, if it's permitted, would put intending tenants off, and there's no real way of combating that. I mean, you can point out that you control the access, but a lot of tenants would just, if there's alternatives, just go elsewhere. So I think, you know, in the long term, it would be very detrimental to the, and there is no agreement on maintenance or on road. Yeah, they'd be the majority of the traffic. So that's broadly the position.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Waite.
Thank you, Chair. From what you've just said, you're asking us to turn down this application so that Shropshire Council looks like they're the bad guys, not you, because you've just suggested that you wouldn't want to be refusing the National Trust the option of doing what they need to do, so you want us to turn it down on your behalf?
I think there must be lots of alternative access points available along the road, and we don't see why there is a need to combine them. I think that's primarily would be the answer there, that there are ways of getting around the problem without inconveniencing, harming the business park efficiency.
Thank you. No more questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And next we have Brian Nelson from Rochester and Uffington Parish Council. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Rochester and Uffington Parish Council objects to this application in its present form and requests that the application is deferred. National Trust has not attempted to respond to the many issues raised both by ourselves and by others locally, and a deferral would give them the opportunity to provide potential solutions to the issues that have been raised before any approval is given. You will be hearing shortly a range of matters raised by Councillor Coleman, and you've also received a submission from Atcham Parish Council, and our Parish Council wishes to support all of the points that they have made. We would also like to support the concerns raised by Hereford Storage in some of their documentation with regard to the potential negative impact on the businesses on their estate, and also their concerns about highway safety and congestion at the exit from the site onto the highway. However, my particular focus today is with respect to Norton Crossroads. I've been required to, as a parish councillor, I've been required to meet with the Highways Authority, police representatives and our Shropshire councillor on many occasions over many years to discuss concerns over the repeated accidents at this junction, some of which are recorded and some of which in fact are not so hazardous that they are recorded. The nature of the junction and its approach roads and the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit have come together basically to create an accident black spot. It's now proposed to require thousands more cars to pass through the junction, and in particular for the large proportion that will come from Telford in the West Midlands to negotiate a right turn against the oncoming traffic. And National Trust has not proposed any mechanism for dealing with this safely and effectively. There is little doubt that there will be many more accidents to come, and at some point lives will be lost. Our parish council has proposed the construction of a roundabout at this junction, which we believe would slow all the traffic down and manage it through the junction effectively and efficiently. Some responses have suggested there's insufficient land for a roundabout, but there is a large plot of land owned by National Trust adjacent to the crossroads, which would provide more than enough room. A small roundabout would be quite sufficient. One of the responses suggests that a small roundabout would not be possible because of the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. However, on one of my visits to Norton with police and Shropshire Council representatives, I was told that it would be possible to pursue a reduction in the speed limit. Hence, a reduced size roundabout would be a possibility. And the additional benefit of having a traffic island installed here is that it would enable the traffic, especially those turning right, to negotiate the crossroads much more effectively, preventing the severe bottlenecks being repeated here that they experience in action for much of the year. May I close with a plea for you to look very carefully at the objections which have been raised against the application and ask you to defer the matter until solutions of these issues have been identified. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Wilson? No. Oh, Councillor Walsley?
So it's just a question. I was seeing a report that Shropshire Highways have asked for a condition requiring £40,000 to be put towards safety improvements at the Northern Crossroad Road because they do recognise the issues that have been there. Have you had any conversation, or are there anything you would like to see that money spent on that would give us an idea of whether it would meet, whether there's enough money to meet your concerns, or have you seen figures that say it's going to be nowhere near enough to do what you think is needed?
Regrettably, the proposals, as I understand them, are significantly about painting lines on roads and not very much else. And I'm sorry, when I went to the site this morning to 12 o'clock, I did go half an hour earlier to make sure I didn't miss your minibus. And in the half an hour I was there, I saw a near miss. There was a large panel van that came, I presume, from the business park. They did a right turn. It was a diesel vehicle. It was driving very slowly as it pulled away from the junction. And the right-hand side coming through those bends, if you've only driven there a couple of times, you'll think, well, nobody can be driving very fast from the Shrewsbury direction because there's all those bends. But many years ago, when this used to be the A5, the highways people banked the roads in each direction as you go around the bends to make sure you can get around them safely at 60 miles an hour. And so people drive around there at 70 miles an hour before they approach the crossroads. The guy in the large van couldn't believe that somebody was coming that fast at him, and literally the two just escaped hitting each other. And that's happening, speaking to the locals, on a regular basis. I do not think the junction is safe as it is at the moment. I think we'll be incredibly more unsafe with all the additional vehicles that are proposed. And therefore, I think that only something like a roundabout, a set of traffic lights, something of that kind would be adequate to address the issues. And I know that's going to be expensive, but I believe, as I understand it, the land ownership there, that whether it's traffic lights or a roundabout, either could be achieved if the money was put forward for it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And now Susan Coleman, who is the local member. Do you have 5 minutes?
Thank you. I'm here to advocate for the residents of Atcham and Roxton and Uppington to object to this planning application and ask for a deferral for these reasons. 27 objections have been submitted, only 7 comments support the scheme. Severe congestion already occurs at Norton Crossroads and Malthouse Lane in Atcham due to the 600,000 existing visitors to Uttingham Park. Norton Crossroads is identified as an accident cluster. The report says highway safety is a minor issue. It is not. Near misses are a daily occurrence and repeated serious accidents occur at Norton Crossroads. Debris is left behind, signage destroyed. Exposure to these traumatic incidents has resulted in lasting emotional distress for nearby residents who are first on the scene acting as untrained first responders. They provide blankets, reassurance and initial first aid before emergency services arrive. They have cared for severely injured individuals, including a distressed 17-year-old motorcyclist crying for his mother while holding the nearby householder's hand. The proposal includes 780 parking spaces, bigger than the National Trust's existing car park, indicating substantial traffic growth. Combined with the regular movement of agricultural vehicles, is a recipe for accidents. The suggested £40,000 278 contribution is inadequate. Safety improvements require more like £150,000 to £200,000. There is no construction, traffic or parking management plan. Having no event management plan raises concerns about increased traffic, noise, crime, unauthorised parking, antisocial behaviour and disruption to residents. There are concerns regarding nighttime disturbance from cyclists and noise on trails as the area is unstaffed at night. Rural tranquillity will be eroded. Under Human Rights Protocol 1, residents' peaceful enjoyment of their homes must be considered. The cumulative impacts are substantial and harmful. A site-wide security plan is required. This must include 24/7 CCTV coverage on cycle tracks and isolated areas, security lighting, measures to prevent after-hours access, and protocols for responding to nighttime disturbance. Without such controls, both visitor and resident safety is compromised. Claims of linking to the National Cycle Network or bus service remain theoretical. No secured agreements have been demonstrated. Attingham Park's restricted opening hours prevent 24/7 access for walkers or cyclists, undermining the stated active travel benefits. Without deliverable links, benefits are not assured. There's no pedestrian link between the hub and Attingham Park, which means all the journeys must be made by car, compounding congestion and the impact on residents. National Planning Policy Framework paragraph 89 requires that rural developments do not create unacceptable impacts on local roads. Paragraph 116 states that permission should be refused where highway safety impacts are unacceptable or cumulative impacts severe. The proposal fails both policy tests due to increased traffic and inadequate mitigation. Despite the scale of the development, only 12 full-time equivalent jobs will be created due to the reliance on volunteers. The National Trust will capture most of the economic benefit. There are no local shops or cafes to receive additional visitor spending. We have one hotel and a garden centre close by. This is a major development. The ongoing costs of road maintenance must be secured and planned for in a way that ensures long-term financial resilience so that Shropshire Council is not left responsible for inevitable resurfacing costs in future years. There's been no meaningful pre-application engagement with parish councils, the local Shropshire councillor, National Trust tenants or affected communities. The National Trust consulted external organisations but not local communities. A minimal presentation was given 2 years ago with no follow-up. The timing of the application meant parish councils couldn't consider it at formal meetings, leaving communities unable to engage properly. The applicants were summoned by Roxton and Uppington Parish Council to a public meeting in spring last year. That meeting showed widespread lack of communication. Residents made clear their objections. These were not addressed then, and no further information has been received or any attempt to discuss issues with residents. The proposal results in multiple severe and unresolved impacts, including unsafe highway conditions, lack of essential management plans, inadequate consultation, loss of residential amenity and minimal economic benefits. So on material planning grounds, I'm requesting a deferral till sound mitigation of all the factors has been received and approved.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor?
Okay, thank you.
And finally on this one, we have Matthew Marshall, the agent. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee for the opportunity to speak. My name is Matthew Marshall and I'm planning consultant for Arup, speaking on behalf of the National Trust. The Trust have developed the outdoor hub as a carefully considered addition to their existing offer at Attingham. It will be a distinct and complementary destination designed to act as a gateway to the countryside for those who may not be typical National Trust members or countryside users. It aims to broaden access to nature, promote health and well-being, and provide new opportunities for outdoor recreation, learning and community use. As such, the proposal accords with national and local plan policy
supporting sustainable economic growth, and aligns with local plan policies that seek to strengthen the rural economy and encourage increased engagement with Shropshire's outstanding landscape, heritage and environment. This is a landscape-led proposal that will introduce extensive new planting, wetland creation, wildflower meadows and green corridors to enhance habitats and achieve biodiversity net gain, significantly surpassing policy requirements. Opportunities for play and recreation include over 13 kilometres of new and improved trails, cycling facilities for different abilities, children's play and exploration spaces and wildlife viewing areas. The site has a unique history as a former RAF airfield that at present is not accessible by the wider community, and the proposal seeks to celebrate and inform visitors about this heritage. The interpretation of the former runway is an integral part of the scheme, and the hub building is modest in scale and uses a natural colour palette and materials, resulting in a contemporary but restrained appearance informed by the site's former wartime structures. With regard to access and highway safety concerns, I would reassure members that proposals have been carefully designed by experienced transport planners and engineers, and I note the Highway Officer's comments reported in the committee report confirm that he has no objection to the scheme on the basis of severe or unacceptable impacts on highway safety or capacity. He identifies matters that require mitigation through suitable conditions and obligations, including improvements to the Norton Crossroads, and I confirm the applicant is happy to accept those conditions and is fully committed to delivering the mitigation identified by the Highway Authority. The Trust is also committed to working with neighbouring landowners and the local community as the project progresses to ensure that impacts are minimised, particularly in respect of access arrangements and event management. In conclusion, therefore, this is a well-designed, policy-compliant and sustainable proposal that delivers clear public benefits, economic, social, environmental and cultural. And for those reasons, on behalf of the applicant, I respectfully ask members to support your officer's recommendation and to grant planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Questions for Mr. Marshall? No?
No.
Councillor Lumley?
Whilst gaining access is not a planning matter, I'm interested to know what the National Trust has actually done for with the business park to obtain that access. Have you had any dialogue with them at all?
Personally, I haven't, but I do know that the National Trust has engaged with the landowners and will continue to do so in order to secure the access and meet any concerns that they might have.
I have a question. Why was there not a separate access put in rather than using the business park access?
Well, good question. The access was already there, adjacent to the land. It was designed to a high standard to accommodate the industrial business park traffic, and in our assessment, that was the best option rather than creating a new access in a different location. The access could be improved and has been designed to be able to cater for the capacity and the amount of traffic that's going to be put through it.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much, Mr. Marshall.
Okay.
Right. We're now over to committee. And who wants to start the ball rolling? Everybody. I was just about to nominate you, Councillor Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I know you'd like me to start first. At this stage, until I've listened to more of the debate, and I know there will be quite a bit of debate on this one, I'd just like to make some observations at the moment of some points that I've made. I mean, this is a major development. It's a massive development, really, for Shropshire, and it's next to a large business park. And I didn't know until the site visit this morning actually how large that business park was. Admittedly, I've seen larger, but I think it's quite a fair size for Shropshire. The issues that I'm concerned about, apart from the access issue, of course, is I noticed that National Cycle Route 45 passes quite near to the site, and I'm concerned that the National Trust hasn't looked closely enough into whether this cycle route, national cycle route, could be integrated into the proposal. So I would like to see more on that. I really think they've missed an opportunity here to provide safe cycle and pedestrian access over perhaps a dedicated road. I appreciate that probably the favoured option for them, and certainly the cheapest option, would be to use the existing access road to the business park. But I really think that a dedicated access with cycle and pedestrian safety concerns would have been better. Also, the nearest bus stop, it's 800 metres from the site, but there isn't a regular bus service, and I'm not sure that an aspiration for an on-demand bus service is actually going to be enough, not with the size of the development that's proposed. I do think there's been a lack of communication with the local parish councils and the local member, so I'm a bit concerned about that. I did note that the agent spoke a few minutes ago saying they're keen to get involved with the local community as things move forward, but I really think they could have communicated better before the application came to committee. I'm also not totally sure that the £40,000 contribution towards road improvements is adequate. It doesn't pay for much. You get a few signs and some lining done, maybe a few new curbstones, and that 40,000 is gone. So I really think that we need more than that. And my only other point is about conditions that would be needed for extra events, but I think we could discuss that and look at whether they need to be restricted, the number that they would hold each year. That's it for now. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to listen to other people's comments.
Thank you. Can I just clarify with officers this point about number of events? Is that licensing rather than planning?
Chair, they would be allowed to hold a number of events without requiring planning permission. And what we would do is we would put on a condition requiring an all singing, all dancing events management plan, which clearly set out what they were going to do within per year, and then we would have a look at that and see whether any further aspects of that required planning permission or not, or whether they could do it through the condition. I think at this early stage, it's very difficult for the applicants to know what events are going to take place and how many are going to take place.
I mean, clearly, there's a degree of permitted event holding of 28 days, but that includes setup and takedown, which is a big event, you know. That's a sort of 5-day period for one night. So it's rather less than that in event terms. I was just wondering how it locks in with licensing, which controls the size of events, you know, the type of events.
Maybe I'll jump in there and say they're like two separate processes that run side by side, and you need to comply with both. So if licensing were to grant something but that breach the planning, then, you know, it works both ways. It would be down to the operator to make sure that they've got everything that they needed in part, and they will cover different aspects as their two regimes do.
Yeah, and there'll be a consultation on any licence that's granted as well. Correct. So there'll be another consultation. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, Councillor Bagnall.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bagnall from Broseley. Yeah, I've visited the site this morning, which was very helpful. I found it quite hard to picture the size of the site and so on without having visited. And I do think that it's an exciting prospect to have something like this being created in our county. I think the more we can get people out into the open air, the better, not only for health, but for general well-being. However, I am concerned about access. I'm concerned I've heard about the issues with the Norton Crossroads, and I agree with the points made by Councillor Higness regarding how far a contribution of £40,000 will go with regards to creating safety, improving safety. But also, I think the access road that's shared with the business park creates difficulties, because if you have regular toings and froings from the business park of vehicles, large vehicles often, I imagine, mixed up with a large number of members of the public wanting to access the National Trust Park, I think it's going to create delays for those vehicles going to the business park. And I think perhaps they've missed a trick here. I appreciate that it makes sense to have to share an access because it's cheaper, for one thing. But I do think that had a bit of thought gone into creating a separate access onto the site, I think we might have been in a better position to support this. I am in two minds about whether to support this or not. I'm still, looking forward to hearing the other points made by other members of the committee. But for now, I'm keeping my powder dry. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Emma.
I'd just like to come in on a point before we go too far in the debate about highways, about potential alternative accesses and what you would have liked to have seen. Just to remind yourself, we must look at the application that's presented in front of us and make our determination on the access that's presented today. Just so that's in your mind while you're thinking about the questions and things you might want to ask us. Hope that helps you.
Councillor Taylor.
I hadn't indicated, but I will speak. Chairman, thank you. Well guessed. Having the Severn Valley Country Park right on my doorstep, I am well versed with the traffic considerations. This council has just had to spend an absolute fortune rebuilding a lane to it, because the accesses to it had been concerned. Had just been for local farm traffic, and the Severn Valley Country Park was established, and so from having a few dozen movements a week down a lane, we now have in excess of thousands up and down. Now, to this application, Chairman, I do not have any objections at all to the application we're considering as is put in front of us. But I do, and in common with everybody that's spoken so far, have great reservations about the access, the traffic movements and that in and around the area, as raised by the parish councils, the local member and the rest of it. It doesn't look as though we on this committee can set those conditions to the extent that they're possibly required. And I would much preferred to go along with the local member and parish councils in asking for a deferment while the National Trust and the Highways Department really do get a grip of all the concerns that have been raised. I don't think it's fair to put that commitment onto this committee. We're not experienced enough. We're not traffic engineers. We don't have all the figures and facts in front of us. So if I'm going to make a decision, as I say, I do support it, but I would prefer it to be deferred, Chairman.
Before I come to Councillor Lumley.
Just want to reiterate that we do have the highway officer comments on this application, so therefore you're being asked to review the application as a whole, but the highway officer has put their recommendations forward, and so I think you need to. It's been set out in the report, so I think to say that it's being put to you to decide on the highways, it's being put to you to decide the application that we as we have gone out to our consultees and put the comments there. So I think you know, our highways officer is in support of the application. To be clear.
Councillor Lumley.
Tabitha's just sucked the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say exactly the same, having sat on this committee for a number of years where we've been uncomfortable with and agreed with the parish in relation to what we felt should be at the junction or how it should be modified. And if highways say that it is suitable, that you can't defer it to ask them to change their mind, because that's what you're asking for, because they have effectively said it's suitable. I share the concerns that on a deed-restricted road, that junction will have a lot more traffic of people that if the National Trust want to encourage people who perhaps don't go to the countryside as a sort of halfway house, they're probably not used to driving in the countryside either. So that probably doesn't help. But I am actually very supportive of the principle of this being there. It'll tidy up that land and make quite a good event that you can go to. So unfortunately, I would have to support it as it's set out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to point out that the applicant's consultant has carried out an independent road safety audit, which is supported by Shropshire Council Highways, and also the Shropshire Council Highways and the applicant have agreed to secure funding through a Section 278 agreement. At the moment, whilst there is resurfacing work on the Norton Crossroads scheduled in before 2027, there is not a very detailed programme of work. So the £40,000 identified is a ballpark figure. At the time of the National Trust entering into the Section 278 agreement with Highways, that the precise works will be identified and a cost established. We can secure that in planning through a obligation on a Section 106 agreement, in that we can secure that a Section 278 agreement is forthcoming. So there are measures in place to secure that proper consideration is given at the right time. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Holyhead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd say what I'm having trouble with at the moment is the clash between the Highways report and then the actual lived experience of the residents there. You know, there obviously remains substantial and well-evidenced concern from residents and parish councils and businesses in regards to the highway safety, access rights, deliverability, congestion, and of course the community impacts. And I must also, you know, have the business here to tell us about it, I do think it is a concern mixing visitor cars and HGV on the access lane. And I think it would have been much more preferable. I know we have to deal with what's in front of us. It would have been preferable. You know, it would have been a lot easier to, you know, be in favour of this if it was a different road in. I'd say my main issue is whether the mitigating measures and conditions proposed are sufficiently robust to reduce the concerns to an acceptable level under NPPF paragraph 116, or whether the unresolved risks, particularly relating to access, deliverability and local safety, remain too significant to support the scheme in its current state.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
I have to echo the concerns of Councillor Holyhead. I do agree. I, in whole, actually do quite like the proposed site. I do like the design, and I think it would be good. My concerns are, again, with access and the highways. To, again, echo Councillor Hignett, there is no... sorry, I'm a bit poorly. So I'm losing my words. There's not been much thought into safe walking spaces and walking routes and cycle routes. And obviously it's going to have a high reliance on car travel, which is showed by the proposed 790 car parking spaces. I agree with the parish councils with the amount of accidents that have been in the area. So my concerns are with highways and access. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walmsley.
I think this looks like a really exciting proposal, and I can see many positives for the area. And share everyone else's concerns about highways, but I very much do put weight on the advice the council officers have put in and the comments they've made and mitigations that they've identified as appropriate. On the entrance to the business park specifically, I feel like there is a solution there, and having heard the representatives from the business saying that they've got control of the road, I think my current inclination is to vote for approval of the application and recognise that there's going to need to be some extensive discussion between yourselves and the National Trust about how this works in practice. And I very much heard what you said when you took your time at the microphone about wanting to cause not being seen to hold up the development. But it's also clear that you've got a lot of local support to come up with, something at that entrance that works for you as a business and for local people. And I would certainly expect the National Trust and their representatives to pay attention to what's being said here and enter into any discussions in the spirit of needing to make sure that you get what you need from it, and they do as well. I can see us sitting in a different world with a slightly different application and saying, well, these entrances are too close to each other and we're going to have vehicles coming out of one and lots of cars coming out from the National Trust site on the other, and it's all going to cause a mess. And a detailed discussion about how we handle that interaction away from the B4394 seems entirely appropriate to me. And if ultimately it turned out that the business park said, look, we can't find a solution that's going to protect our business here, National Trust are going to have to do something else, and at some point I find myself looking at another application from the National Trust, then I would be very sympathetic to the position that you took. What I'm wary of today is just holding up a big development over something that we could defer today and the conversation happens, or we could approve it today. That conversation's still got to happen, but it can happen outside of the additional constraints that apply when it's happening at the council. And I think it might be a speedier, more efficient way to get to an answer that works for everyone.
Councillor Hignett.
Thank you, Chair. It's time for me to talk again. I think maybe some people might have got the impression when I was speaking before that I was against this application, and I'm not against the application to develop this land into something that could be one of the best tourist attractions in Shropshire. We like having tourists come to Shropshire. We like them to go home again, so we can try and keep our county as it is and not get too big. But I really think that it's an excellent application for what it could provide for tourists from in our area and outside of our area. I do also note that 6.5.8 on the report does say that the highways are, let's not say happy, but let's say they think it's acceptable with the designs that are changed. And having listened to what other people have said on the debate and that, I do think that there is a possibility, and as the previous speaker quite rightly said, that with the right negotiations and the right frame of mind going into that, there are possibilities for using that entrance to the business park, such as, for instance, and if I was looking at, I would be looking at something like a dedicated lane coming out of the business park added to that access road, specifically for business park traffic and not for visitors leaving and entering the site. So I think there are possibilities. The trouble is at this committee where we don't know what those possibilities are and what the negotiations might work out to, and as quite rightly said, maybe they won't work out. But in principle, for the application for the development, I'm in support of that.
Okay. this might have to comment. But I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place in a bit with this, because it should have come through as an outline application in the first place for access only. And we could have dealt with the access issues before we got to this full design. And that would be the normal process. However, it was presented to the council as a full application. And we don't have any control over that. But I feel that much of this debate could have been resolved at outline stage, which is what we normally do. You know, and that's why we have the outside outline stage for access only. So I think that's disappointing. In the same way, it's disappointing that liaison with communities of the one brief session is after the application is sort of full fat and really detailed. And an interactive process works much better to take on things like Councillor Coleman's point, for example. Now, there's still time to integrate some of these, but the scheme is sort of 95% there, really. We're tweaking around the edges somewhat. Although we have advice from our highways officer from developing highways on the highways issues, I instinctively feel, having looked at it in detail, that it's not really spot on, that there is going to be an issue about right turning. You know, that it's fairly obvious there will be. We looked at the road this morning, and it's pretty obvious there's going to be an issue there. That does concern me very much, but there's something else which hasn't come up so far. The shared use cycle and walking path, and potentially horses, crosses just to the north of the business park entrance. And frankly, I find that a bit scary. We saw the traffic speeds this morning. Okay, people will be reasonably fit, but we're supposed to design for safety. You know, approved planning permissions which are safe. And I actually don't feel that that particular proposal is safe. I mean, the scheme is excellent overall. You know, it's something we should approve when we get it right. So we have a decision to make as a committee whether to accept it and allow officers to bash out the details, hopefully involving the local communities once permission is granted, or we defer it to bash out some of the details and bring it back to committee for full approval. I don't hear anyone saying they want it turned down. You know, so we are going for approval. It's just a question whether it's now or deferred. Can I have a proposal on that? Councillor Walsey. So you're going with the officer recommendation. Okay. And Councillor Waite.
I'll second that.
Any Councillor Lumley.
Does that need the additional 106 to get to the other funding thing? So that needs
to include the provision of a section 278 agreement. Yes, include that.
Yeah, that would be in the 106. Yeah.
Yeah, but had you initially asked for that, or we now need to bolt? Yeah, so we need to bolt that onto the.
Yeah. And we have in the report, we have outline conditions, which will then be developed by officers prior to the actual decision. Okay, then we go for a vote.
Okay, so if you can indicate whether you're voting for or against the recommendation to approve the application in accordance with the recommendations set out in the report with the addition of the requirements for 278 in the section 106 agreement. Caroline Bagnall.
For.
Elizabeth Barker.
Against.
Rachel Connolly.
Against.
Nick Hignett.
For.
George Holyhead.
Against.
Nigel Lumbey.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Beverly Waite. For. Sam Walmsley
For.
and Andy Boddington.
Against.
6 for and 4 against. That's approved.
That's been agreed. Thank you very much, everyone. So if those involved with Attingham would like to leave the room, because this floor.
It was 6 for the proposal and 4 against the proposal.
I don't understand why.
This is just
but I put it down to having a bottle of wine for breakfast. But the members are asking if they have a toilet paper. Yep. Okay, we're just going to take a few minutes so that people can have a comfort break. Is it going to be in a bottle?
No live again, Chair.
Okie doke, we're live again. The next agenda item is for a house north of Little Bampton in Guildhall. Lily, you again speaking on this? It's always you.
Okay, this is an outline planning application to include access with all other matters reserved, that is appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. The description of development is for the erection of an affordable dwelling and detached garage, formation of replacement vehicular access and installation of a packaged sewage treatment plant. Here the location plan shows the dwelling site, access and position of the proposed soakaway in red. That's the little small projecting limb. And the remainder of the land within the applicant's ownership in blue. The two small red crosses mark the extent of the proposed visibility splays. That's 12.5 metres to the north and 9.3 metres to the south. This is the indicative site layout showing an approximate positioning of the main elements, including the dwelling and detached garage, the soakaway, borehole, fencing lines and gates. The orientation of the proposed dwelling has been designed to enjoy sunshine from the southwest, and the applicant has indicated that it would be single storey. This slide shows the detailed access layout with proposed visibility splays clearly annotated in red and associated hedge trimming indicated. The location of the current gateway would become an extension of the existing hedge line. A new gate is proposed to be located 15.5 metres back from the carriageway beyond the right angle bend. A 10-metre stretch is indicated leading up to the bend and the access will be 5.5 metres wide. This plan has been submitted with the application to demonstrate the applicant's position that the site should be read as adjoining the settlement. There is discussion in relation to the parcel of land directly to the south of the proposed site within the submitted design and access statement and the committee report. That's this area. Yeah. Taking the crossroads as the centre of the settlement, this plan shows its western extent as 320 metres from the crossroads, with the site as 247 metres to the north of the crossroads. The applicant has also provided this image of the OS plan from 1903, showing that the area to the south of the application site is indicated as orchard in order to assist their reasoning that it is residential curtilage forming the edge of the settlement. The final three slides are photographs, firstly showing views south across the site from the B4385, including the existing field gate. Secondly, view from the B4385 across the site in a westerly direction. And views from within the site. The top photograph showing the outlook to the north and bottom image facing south across the site towards Little Brampton Barn. The final slide is a late rep submitted by the applicant this morning to it's a photograph showing Clunbury Parish Council website. From Clunbury Parish Council website homepage. The red circle shows two cottages, number 6 and 7 Little Brampton. The red arrow indicates the location for the proposed dwelling. So it's a view across towards the site from the south to to indicate its position in relation to the built environment. The applicant has been found to fulfil the local connections and housing need criteria for an affordable home. And it's also accepted that Little Brampton is a recognised named settlement. However, the scheme is fundamentally contrary to the relevant planning policies in that the site is spatially and visually divorced from existing built form, such that it cannot be regarded as being within or adjoining the established settlement. Moreover, given its isolation and prominence within the wider countryside, any new dwelling here would detract from the essentially open agricultural character and scenic beauty of this part of the Shropshire Hills national landscape. And it's not considered that this environmental harm could be satisfactorily mitigated or would be offset by the scheme's relatively minor, wider public benefits. For these reasons, members are requested to support officer's recommendation for refusal of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions for Lynn on this? No? Okay, then we go to speakers. First one is Sam, Councillor Walmsley, who is a local member. And you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. The area of southwest Shropshire that encompasses the River Clun and its tributaries faces a very specific housing problem. The Clun is a precious habitat for a wide range of wildlife, and that includes the freshwater pearl mussel, which is an internationally significant species and as it deserves and has a high level of legal protection. And key aims of that is controlling nutrient and sediment levels in the river, and one potential source of nutrients is wastewater from houses. And in effect, these rules has been restrictions on house building in the towns and villages that surround the Clun, and meeting the criteria to ensure environmental protection is very difficult, and it's led to a crisis in both availability and affordability of housing for young people in the area. When ready to leave home, they very understandably many of them would like to stay close to friends and family, but the number of suitable houses is extremely limited. So while the rest of Shropshire struggles with the 5-year land supply and tilted balance, in the Clun area we're desperate for new houses, and the application before us gives us a chance to take one small step towards addressing that problem. The nature of applications that come in front of this committee means that they always require careful consideration. We don't get the easy decisions. I thank the planning officer for the time he's put into preparing his report and the clear way in which key points related to this application have been presented. So to Lynn for her presentation in this session. I hope all the councillors found it as useful as I have. So within my division, an easy planning application would require an extremely lucky combination of available land at a location where a house can comply with all the relevant policies and also the specific environmental rules that are in place to protect the Clun. The reality is that in most, all the cases I've seen, the difficulty of ticking all these boxes means the only reasonable decision is to refuse permission. Today, we have the opportunity to enable progress and allow a young man to have a house to live in. I recognise the concerns raised by the planning officer and that these will be in the minds of everyone making their decision today. So hopefully I can give you some evidence that I feel would allow us to reasonably say yes to this application. The proximity of the proposed dwelling to Little Brampton is the key issue, but one where I feel judgment and consideration of the broader situation gives a reasonable path to approval of this application. As those of you who attended site this morning will have seen, Little Brampton is already a settlement stretched along a road, and that's not an unusual layout across the area that I represent. If the house already existed, I feel that the people of Little Brampton would accept it as part of their village. It wouldn't be seen as a distant outpost. And same for a casual visitor, if you were looking down from the footpaths on the hills above it, you wouldn't think, well, what's that house doing there? You just think, oh, there's a little hamlet with people going about their day-to-day lives. And there's a specific point related to developments close to the Clun that I'd like to raise, and that's that if an application comes in that is within one of the larger settlements, they almost all cases get refused, because the way the environmental rules come together, and I've spent a lot of the last 8 months working all of these out, and it's extremely complicated, but to protect the river from nutrients, there's certain rules in place. There's also other sets of legislation, and one of those says that if you're build a new house within 30 metres of a sewer, you should connect to the sewer. But then the environmental rules say, well, that puts more load into the river, so you can't connect to the sewer. But then the other planning rules say, but you can't put a package plant in because you're within 30 metres of a sewer. What's the relevance of that to this application? The applications that come in within settlements, the bigger settlements, get turned down for one reason. Here, we've overcome the biggest challenge in the Clun area, which is about the environmental protection. The proposed sewage treatment plant and the soakaway can ensure that no nutrients go into the river, but it does mean that
could you wind up things?
Oh, sorry. There's significant local support because people recognise the need for housing in the area. The Parish Council have asked me to point out that they still have some concern about the technical issues raised by highways, and if you want to commit the applicant to anything, but the primary school is within a mile and needs more pupils.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, you're out of time. Any questions for Councillor Warnes? No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. You can leave. Okay, now we have Sean Jones, the agent. Thank you, Councillor Jones. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm Sean Jones, the applicant's agent, and I'd like to summarise what I feel are the key points about this application. There are no objections from technical consultees. The highway officer is now satisfied the new entrance will be safe, and he has made a comment on sustainability. In reply, I can say that the number 745 Ponsbury to Ludlow bus goes right past the application site and stops at Little Brampton. He has raised, I think, slightly confused the picture with his words on the last part of his comment on the website, and he does confirm that the splays for the proposed entrance should be subject to the approved plans and conditions. So he's clearly not against it as he's referred to conditions. At the Parish Council meeting, 8 of the 9 councillors supported the application, highlighting community support. In terms of the main reason for a refusal, whether their site adjoins the settlement or not, I think it's very difficult to work out where a small settlement starts and ends. It's a subjective matter. Unfortunately, the applicant doesn't have any other land available to him to apply at this settlement or at any other, so this is his only option. And the committee has approved applications on the same basis in the last 10 years, including one at Pulverbatch last spring. The second reason for refusal relates to visual impact. The location site is in a dip in the corner of a field, and a pair of cottages can be seen being 175 metres away on the plan that was shown up above us a few minutes ago. The proposed single-storey dwelling will be situated with rising land behind it, with a mature hedge and the road as close as possible to the main road at the moment, with trees along the road. And I think some extra hedge planting there can be a sympathetic environmental benefit. The council's website shows that only 4 previous applications have been submitted for affordable homes in the parish going back to 2009. So only 3, including this one, in the last 16 years. And that illustrates how few people meet the criteria. And the criteria for these homes have lots of strings attached in terms of size, a perpetual affordable criteria, and 40% discount on value, so the bar is high. The applicant is demonstrating a serious long-term commitment to living and working nearby. We started on this application process nearly 3.5 years ago. The cost so far has been over £11,000. There's been 15 letters of support and only 1 against. Approval of this by your committee today, I feel, will send a very positive message to the South Shropshire community that you're supportive of affordable housing. I urge you please to exercise your discretion and support this young chap, aged only 25, to be able to live in his local area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for Mr. Jones? No, no, sorry, Councillor Taylor.
It's just a simple one. Very quickly, you've just mentioned it's on a bus route.
Yes.
How often do the buses go along?
I haven't got the information with me.
I can answer that. That it's on Mondays and Fridays. Twice a week.
It's not down soon, so
no, it's twice a week. It's a Midstream Motors bus from Pontypridd. Councillor.
Yeah, I presume that the person intending to live there does have a driver's license, his own car.
Yeah.
Can do all that, so wouldn't need public transport essentially.
He wouldn't need it, no, but it would be available. In terms of sustainability, it's whilst it's a very rural location, there is public transport available.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
Okay.
Right. We are over to committee. Who wishes to start? Councillor Holyhead.
Thank you. As someone who was actually a member of the Shropshire Hills National Landscape Committee, I know how difficult it is in the Clun area to actually get planning. We've only recently just done our fresh report, which has gone through Cabinet, and the Clun Valley has its own subsection essentially, whereas everything else is quite general. So the fact that this application has actually been able to pass most of that spec means there must have been a considerable discussion going through and also sort of things given and taken. The only 2 things I can see against it really are the distance away from the central settlement. Although having seen that, I can't remember the addresses, sorry, but the 2 cottages in that image seems to be really, you could argue, it's along those same lines. And then also, I know there's a big push for using public transport and whatnot, but if you're going to live in the middle of the countryside, you're going to mostly use your car, in my opinion. So for me, I'm very much in favour of the application.
Thank you. Other comments, Councillor Hignett?
Thank you, Chair. This is another dispersed settlement one. We get these regularly, and I know we treat each one on its own individual merits and so forth. But it certainly is a dispersed settlement. The last photograph on there was quite interesting that was showed by our planning officer, because it shows that whether you feel it's isolated or not really depends on the angle that you look at it. And if you look at the last one, the proposed red arrow, almost shows it to be in amongst quite a few other buildings. I know there is one field in between them, but I'm just making that point. I think it's very important to support local agriculture, particularly people that need to stay in the area to support their work. So I applaud that. There are planning policies, as has been outlined in the report, that show that it shouldn't be supported. But the reason it's come to committee is for us to look at whether we go with those policies totally, or whether we look at other factors into consideration. The intention is to build it single story, which I think will limit it to a certain amount. There is a good amount of landscaping between the road, hedge and the proposed driveway. which would work okay. The site visit this morning satisfied me that I don't think it was too prominent in the local landscape. It's in a somewhat of a hollow, not at the bottom of a valley or anything, but it is reasonably low, and I think being single story will help. And finally, I would say that if there was a legal agreement to control initial and future occupancy and put a cap on the resale value to make sure that it was truly an affordable dwelling, then I would be in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I know this valley well, and I've walked through well, in fact, all of it, including looking down from Clumbury, excuse me, including looking down from Clumbury towards this view, and also from the south and from the north, east and west. But I think this settles in as a single story building. This settles into the landscape well. That's good. My only concern about this initially was with highways, because the road is quite fast and quite awkward at times, but highways are happy. So I think that is fine. It is a little distance from the settlement, but it is a Clun Valley. And as Councillor Hignett said, we've dealt with these many times before. The settlements aren't just stuck together in a little cluster, and they tend to spread along the valleys. And if you drive from Craven Arms to Clun, you'll see quite a lot of scattered houses all the way along, and it's very much in keeping. So I think this is low impact. It serves a vital local need. I think, well, I will certainly be voting for approval. So if I propose from the chair that we go against the officer's recommendation, that we approve the application on the basis of local need and a good fit with the landscape. Somebody like to second that? Councillor Holyhead. Can we do this on a show of hands? Oh, sorry, Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, I just wondered whether we can add to that it must be single story, because I'm ever so queasy about the fact that this has come before us as outline and restricting it to a single plot exception house and the single story. I don't want. Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, if that's where we wanted to go with the proposal, well, yes, we could have a condition like that. We would need delegated powers for conditions in your proposal, and also to secure a section 106 as part of that motion. That's okay.
That's fine. Now I'm going to do this on a show of hands because I've heard nothing against it. So all those in favour? Well, we've got 6. 7. Sorry.
You forgot to case.
Okay.
Chair, can we have a name vote, please?
You want a name vote? Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Lumley second.
No. Councillor Holly. So we better go through the call if you've requested it, and we'll go through the list.
Okay, so we've got a proposal to accept the application against the officer's recommendation, approving it on the basis of the local need and a good fit with the landscape. We also adding that you think it was part of the settlement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you can indicate whether you're voting for or against that, and there's also the delegation to officers for a need for a section 106 agreement and for the conditions. Caroline Bagnall?
Against.
Elizabeth Barker?
For.
Rachel Connolly?
For.
Nick Hignett?
For.
George Holyhead?
For.
Nigel Lumby?
For.
Colin Taylor?
For.
Beverly Waite?
Against.
Andy Boddington?
For.
Okay, so that's approved.
Okay. Thank you very much, committee. Right, committee, we're nearly done. We have a final application, which is a footpath outside 75 High Street, Bridgenorth.
Thank you, Chair. So this application's come before committee because this will be on land owned by Shropshire Council, although it's not an application applied for by us, but it's for an advertisement panels. It's to be on the footpath pavement. These are really difficult plans to see. At the moment, existingly in that street furniture, there is an existing telephone box, a sort of monument with a little train on, hanging basket. Oh, that's gone. And there's a bench. So there's existing street furniture there. It's to take away the telephone box and replace it with a higher double-sided advertisement sign. For advertisements, there's two issues to consider. That's public safety and amenity. We haven't got any concerns from officers on the basis of public safety, highway safety point of view. We have, however, got concerns on the amenity of an illuminated signage and the impact on the conservation area and the listed buildings. So our recommendation is for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Emma? Comments on the application? Got all the hands at once. Give it to Councillor Connolly.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that I am from Bridgenorth. I go past this place every single day. I know the area very well. I support the officer recommendations. The fact that it is in a conservation area, I do believe that this would be totally, not in keeping with the area. So I will not be here. I will be supporting officer recommendations.
Councillor Hignett and Councillor Long.
Same thing, Chair. It's a modern illuminated signs in a conservation area, surrounded by some listed buildings. So totally against it.
It was always going to be who got to speak first and second, and I'm not going to waste my time saying any more than the words. I absolutely agree with what you said.
Okay. Can I have a proposal to accept the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hignett, would somebody like to say? Okay. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Councillor Barker. Okay. We will do this one on a show of hands. As is fairly straightforward. All those in favour of the officer recommendation of refusal? That is unanimous. Right. There's a schedule of appeals and decisions, which is stuff to read at home, and it's simply there to note. The next meeting is at 2 o'clock on the 24th of February here in the Guildhall. And there the meeting ends. Thank you very much, committee.